News. I'm Akash Mistry, your host for the broadcast at CIO News. This is a recorded session and will be available on our website, cionews.co.in and CIO News LinkedIn handle. This is an exclusive fireside chat powered by Avaya on transformation through customer experience. Businesses are built by experiences they provide, and every day, millions of those experiences are delivered by Avaya. Avaya is shaping what's next for the future of work with innovation and partnership that delivers a game changing business benefit. So let's dive in and let me introduce my guest for today, Mr. Durgaprasad Swaminathan. He is EVP and CIO at Cholamandalam Investment and Finance Company Limited. He has been associated with Cholamandalam for more than 5 years. And moreover, he has 20 plus years of hands on experience in various dimensions like financial services, digital transformation, technology risk management, program management, and vendor management. We also have Mr. Bhavesh Vora, who is a sales engineer leader at Avaya India South. He is a dynamic and result oriented professional with a progressive leadership experience in enterprise, telecom, and IT industry. Over to you, Mr. Bhavesh.
Thank you, Akash. Thank you, Mr. Durga Prasad, for joining us today morning. Uh, the theme, I think, is about customer experience. So let me quickly start. What I'll be doing is I'll be asking you a few questions, around 20 to 25 minutes, and we would love to hear about what you are doing within Cholamandalam Financial Services. Especially in the area of customer experience. So to start with, just to set the context and for the benefit of the viewers of CIO News and Avaya, if you can quickly tell, we all know, right? Cholamandalam is a financial services arm of Murugappa Group. So what is your role? As a CIO, what are your priorities within Cholamandalam to start with?
Sure, yeah. First of all, thank you for having me on this chat. And maybe I'll give you a quick overview of what Chola does, right? So Chola is part of the Durgapra group. The group itself has more than 20 different companies, broadly in three different areas. One is focused on manufacturing, one is focused on agri, and the third is focused on financial services. Financial services, there is an insurance arm called Cholamandalam MS, which is a joint venture between the group and Mitsui Sumitomo of Japan, and Cholamandalam Finance itself, which is a NBFC, which predominantly has been in asset-based finance. So Chola has been an NBFC in existence for more than 40 years, and today it has a loan book or assets under management of more than 80,000 crores. So bulk of what Chola does is, a big part of our book is made up of vehicle finance. So we are one of the top players in the vehicles finance space, covering work in such a way that after a few years of purchasing a new vehicle, a large operator may want to move to a newer vehicle, while a small operator would say, "Can I make use of a used vehicle to expand his scope of business?" So we play across both the new and used segments in the vehicle finance space, which makes up close to three-fourths of our book. We also have significant product offerings in the home loan and loan against property business. And in the past year, we have expanded our products in the unsecured space. So we have unsecured business and personal loans, as well as small ticket loan against property also coming up, and also external offerings that we have to our business ecosystem partners. So whether it could be to the dealers and manufacturers that are part of the vehicle finance ecosystem, or it could be valuation agencies, home loan space or loan against property space, or ultimately to the customers who actually take the products from us. So my coverage goes from enabling all that from an infrastructure perspective, the technology solution perspective, and making sure all of that is getting done in a secure manner.
Got it. I think, thank you. I think that's a very diversified, and you mentioned 1,000 plus branches, huh? Okay, that's big.
That's
Okay, yeah. So, thanks for that insight. Going forward, I'm sure since you have 1,000 branches, there are a lot of sales executives, relationship managers, and probably a physical meeting would be the key strategy of customer experience. But if you go to the non-physical aspect, I mean, wanted to understand how do you manage customer experience, especially and as you mentioned, digital transformation, especially with the use of digital
Yeah.
channels and contact centers and all. I mean, how does a customer experience happen within Cholamandalam?
So quite a bit obviously got accelerated, and you would have heard it many times, got accelerated during the pandemic, right? Meaning,
Yes,
uh, typically, and one thing that comes into play for us is the fact that, unlike top tier banks, a lot of our focus is in the tier three, four kind of locations. So the people trust aspect becomes big as way of us doing business. So somebody who wants to borrow or has any kind of relationship with Chola, they want to have an initial interaction that is on the foundation of trust. So they may want somebody that they can relate to rather than somebody hiding behind a completely
mm,
digital front, right?
okay,
So that happens there. But our aim is to say, can I establish an initial relationship on this trust foundation, but then slowly move them to a digital kind of engagement channel. So that's what
mm,
we have been pushing for. So let's say even right from onboarding during the pandemic, if you take one of the onboarding processes is something called a personal discussion. So we before we fund a particular business or a person, we want to have a view of where do they stand in their business, what kind of flow they have,
mm,
and a lot of that gets captured during a personal discussion, which happens besides the typical bureau check, financial statement check, bank statement analysis, and stuff like that. So that was one of the things you would see move totally to a digital engagement. To say instead of me going personally and visiting at the physical location of the customers,
correct.
operations, we started doing that digitally. And again, there were initial resistances, that this is something which is unique or specific to the way we want to get the comfort on the customer. But over time, I think people realize this has got a lot more ease, both for us as a business operations as well as for the customer, because they could do it a lot more conveniently. So these are the ways where we are seeing that anything that has a potential to be digitally replaced, right? So our aim is to say, can I do a digital engagement for replacing any of these physical interactions? So it could be both from onboarding, like a personal discussion or a KYC kind of check, to collections, where a lot of things may have been I go and then collect
Mm,
cash. Can I send the person a link for them to do a digital payment through any of the numerous channels that we have in the country today? And it could go down to next layer to say a lot of paper based interactions, right? So we had paper, you will be having multiple agreements, documents that were having ink signatures. Can I replace them with digital signatures? So our aim is to say, across the range of interactions with the customer, can I replace the way I digitally engage from a person perspective, from a interaction perspective, from a financial perspective, as well as from a paper replacement point of view? So those are the different ways we have been tackling to say, how do I improve the digital interaction with the customer?
yeah, very interesting, Mr. Durga Prasad. You touched upon a couple of points. I think you mentioned that physical meeting is the key, because that is where trust starts. But in the pandemic, you have started virtual meetings to, really understand the customer nuances. So I think pandemic has, in some sense, accelerated the digital transformation. You also touched upon other points like doing eKYC and all of them. I want
Yeah.
to come on that. But before I go, I'll jump a question since we touched
Sure.
upon
Yeah. Go ahead.
pandemic. I think it last 2.5 years, I mean, if I see pandemic and Cholamandalam being a very traditional NBFC, who does business in a traditional way, paper-based relationship, physical relationship with customers and all. So how has this pandemic been? I mean, when you cannot really meet your customer, both for selling a product or even doing collection, how did you manage it? People working from home, remotely, and all those. If you can cover that aspect.
Yeah, sure. So I think one good thing was even before the pandemic, we have more than say 15, 20,000 employees on the field who are
Mm,
engaged in sales and collections. So they could be actually at a dealer place where you go and look out for a vehicle. So they could be there to say, can you, if you're making this purchase, would you like to take a loan with Chola and have that, as an auto loan with us? And all that whole journey of, onboarding the customer, giving them a credit decision, and then doing a disbursement to the dealer, that has been digitally enabled even prior to the pandemic. So which meant that, the need for some of them to be, hooked to an office or a physical location was predominantly eliminated even before that. And the same when holds true for collections, where we had mobile enabled solutions in place for our collection executives to, carry out field collections, or even engage with customer and say, I have met the customer, I have shared him a short link for him or her to go and make a digital payment, so that, the modes of digital engagement was already, the seats for that were already in place for a bulk
mm,
of our field executives. Now, probably, I don't know, I won't say foresight, but we also moved from a collaboration perspective within the organization to a cloud platform, probably 6 months before the pandemic hit us. And that, in a way, kind of saved a job for quite a few of us, because we were effectively able to take advantage of that, and ability to work remotely was significantly kind of put in place through that solution. And obviously, maybe just a week or two before the pandemic, we did go through a risk review exercise to say what is it that needs to be enabled from a pure work from home perspective. So there are like definite, things that we cannot miss. Like we have a treasury function who need to, be able to send paper faxes or, print and send pieces, making sure they are enabled to work with whatever is required from their home or whatever workplace they choose to have. So making sure those pieces are in place. So some, I would say, were there even before. Some maybe bit of timing advantage, and
mm.
some a bit of preparedness helped us tide over the whole challenges of remote working during the pandemic. Now, one area where, we started kind of increasing the controls during the course of pandemic was on the whole security space, because what we realize is with people working significantly remotely, how do you ensure that, the broader digital footprint does not expose a larger surface area for any attack. So significant oversight of making sure the right patches, starting from basics like patching, antivirus, to remote working solutions, stronger VPN capabilities and stuff like that all came into play there.
Okay. So I think you mentioned about the cloud. You deployed a cloud collaboration platform, is what you said before the
Yeah, so
pandemic.
it's
Yeah.
this typical email collaboration, everything on the cloud.
Okay, okay. Okay. So let me touch upon cloud. If I look at customer experience area, and I've been talking to a lot of BFSI customers, e-commerce companies, and we see e-commerce are more forward-looking. They want to put all the solutions to cloud, but BFSI is still more conservative. Very very skeptical about customer data, information, and all. So, what is your organization's readiness in moving applications and infrastructure to cloud? Is it on cloud? Is it on prem, or it is on a combination of two?
It's a combination of both. Maybe when I joined, we were predominantly on-prem. Like,
Mm,
5 years ago when I joined, 100% of what we had as our infrastructure and application hosting, everything was on in
mm,
an on-prem, which is basically a co-located
correct.
data center. And what we have done as part of our transition journey in the past few years is start moving, you know, pieces to cloud. And it has not been like, okay, cloud by default. We just don't want to do a lift and shift. So making sure, is there a clear suitability of that application working in the cloud? So factors like, is there a scalability aspect that is coming into play for me to take advantage of what cloud offers, right? So given the nature for our business, a lot of happens, and you would have heard it from many NBFC or banking folks that a lot of booking happens in the last few days of the month.
Yeah.
So how do you scale for that or plan for that so that you can, you know, deliver an infrastructure that does not negatively impact the user and customer experience? So a lot of that came through the cloud. The second aspect was making sure that, you know, are there availability capabilities that we can tap onto from a cloud perspective. So, you know, in terms of both infrastructure availability, either, are we able to get that, significantly better with cloud? And do we have more scalable DR aspects in place? Because what we don't want is in a typical environment, you would have a DR in place, but the capacity of that may be limited because you may not have done the investment required for that to be, on par with the production kind of setup. But is there something that now you can take advantage of in the cloud such that you have an ability to scale the DR capacity on demand as and when required, so that the business does not see any deterioration in their ability to carry on business? So that was the second part. The third one was making sure as we deploy new solutions, can we have cloud native solutions that are already available? So, a lot of, let's say, fintech partners have ready available solutions on different cloud providers. So, is that something we can really tap onto rather than trying to force fit, a traditional application, what may be a typical three-tier kind of application running in a virtualized environment, trying to force fit that into cloud? But are there newer solutions that are more cloud ready, having cloud native architecture for us to scale on individual components and deliver value to the business? So that was the third aspect that came into play.
Okay. Thank you. Going forward, I wanted to again come back to customer experience. So, I mean, as a company, I'm sure Cholamandalam must be measuring customer experience, CSAT score, NPS score, something like that. Uh, across the all channels. And I mean, the second
Mhm.
part of the question is, do you have an in-house contact center, customer service, or is it outsourced?
So it's
And how
predominantly
do you?
outsourced. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we are meaning, and that's something where, during the pandemic we realized an area we need to focus on because
Mm,
we were predominantly outsourced, and the ability for making sure the partners are also able to deliver the services without any impact to the
mm,
operational continuity, right? So that's an area where we feel we will be, kind of revisiting the way we operate some of these. But it's predominantly outsourced, to answer your question. Yeah.
outsourced. Yeah. 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 And I think the second part, I think about the measuring customer experience. Do you use tools, technology for measuring? Maybe doing surveys for customers, or
So we do
is it?
surveys.
Yeah.
So see, I think the way I personally look at it is the first thing is if you have different solutions deployed for customers. In our case, it could be the end customers who are
Mm,
taking our loans, or it could be the, say, automotive dealers that we deal with. What we look at is first of all their adoption of the solutions we are offering from a
mm,
digital perspective, right? So if you have an app in front of the customer, how many of them have out of across our customer base, how many have actually downloaded and registered and started using the app? So that's the first base of us seeing what is my adoption across the target population that I am positioning this for.
mm,
The second one's okay, once the adoption is there or at least reaches a sizable volume, then then it comes to how many of them are actively engaged on the platform. So do I see, if I look at say a monthly active users or daily active users kind of volume, or even the transaction flows that happen, is that reflective of my adoption, and is there continual engagement that my platform is delivering? So that's the second part of the way we look at it. So what is the flow, whether it is from simple service request from the customer, or kind of requests that our dealers place on our systems and so on. So that's the second part of how engaged are our end users on the different platform solutions we offer.
mm,
The third then boils down to, okay, now that we have done that, where do we see the experience feedback? So in terms of CSAT or NPS kind of pieces, to say we have got the first two. Are they still happy? Would they be happy to recommend others to come on to this, or are there specific feedback or areas of improvement they want to come back to us? So that's the third leg we look at it.
Good. Okay, I think covered a lot of points. I think I'll just one last question.
Yeah.
Continuing from survey and customer experience, do you do customer journey maps? Is the one part of the question.
Absolutely.
You
Yeah.
map the customer journey,
Yeah.
and continuation with that. Are there any automation and AI tools in place? To measure the
Absolutely. So
we
we
risk
have
and
a
specifically on the
customer
customer
journey.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So
yeah,
we we have a kind of a customer journey roadmap in place for each product and that we offer to our customers. So the way a customer journey for onboarding will, for let's say a personal loan, will be significantly different from the loan journey for a two-wheeler customer, which will be again different from a journey for a home loan customer. So the specific journey maps are in place. We also go through a kind of a lean review to say are the steps in the journey significantly add value as they move from one stage to another. And what we are doing, and to answer the second part of your question is, are there pieces that can be you know digitally enabled or maybe AI enabled to make it more seamless? So
yeah,
it could be the fact that earlier I would say, can you enter your name, your PAN number, your address, and all that stuff. So now can I use the digital tools to say, hey, here, upload a photo of your PAN. I will use OCR to scan the details, and I can use this different digital tools to come back and say whether is the PAN number valid, is the PAN matching what name, and so I can do two things. One, make it more frictionless for the customer on one hand, and at
yeah,
the other hand, the quality of data that comes in is significantly higher. So that's the way we look at it, to say, can I cut down, maybe like a whole data entry becomes significantly reduced, and the quality of what gets entered also significantly improve, so that I don't have to do any kind of manual health checks or validations later on in the whole journey cycle. So that's the way we look at it. So and now I think a lot of the onboarding journeys are significantly integration based. So if you take a typical customer journey onboarding, you will have more than 50, 60 API calls that actually enable the progress of the customer from the first screen he enters to the disbursement page that he will end up with. Because right from, let's say, account validation, disbursement, penny drop, you can kind of do everything with minimal data entry, at the same time with a very strong data quality and validation to make sure that is that drop offs and the frictions are all taken out.
yeah. So I think, yeah, I'm kind of done. Just I wanted to summarize, and maybe if you wanted to add a few more words, Mr. Durga Prasad. I mean, really large NBFC, 1,000+ branches. Vehicle loans is what I understand is a primary business, and followed by SME, agri, and all. Uh, from a technology perspective, you're a combination of I mean on-prem to exploring cloud and all. Early adopters of tools like automation, AI, very much dependent on physical relationship, with the customers. More and
At least
the
yeah,
digital,
when I would say
yeah,
at least the first interaction we believe needs to be physical to establish
physical.
trust.
Yes,
And
yes.
then our aim is to say, can I then move them to, start
Digital
engaging
platform.
digitally
Yeah,
thereafter?
yeah. Maybe for collections or
Yeah.
another. Yeah. So I think that that's good. I mean, I am kind of done. I mean, I can see this kind of medium adopter of digital channels. So Akash, I am done. Mr. Durga Prasad, if you want to make any more closing comment, you can do. Otherwise, I'll hand it over back to Akash.
Yeah, meaning, see, I would say we are in a journey, meaning the
Yeah.
whole technology adoption is kind of a treadmill. Once you get onto it, then there is no end.
Yes. Yes.
So, and
Yes.
things keep changing. Some of the systems we built, say, 2, 3 years ago, again,
Mm.
we are realizing there are more and more automations that we can put in place to make it. So, it's a continuous journey of improvement, and probably sometimes you will have to as a technologist, what you realize, you never love your
No, no, absolutely,
products too much,
absolutely.
because otherwise you will be resistant to change. So that's
Yeah.
what is the
Yes,
way forward.
yes.
That's
Thank you.
great. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing your journey and views, Mr. Durgaprasad. And thank you so much, Mr. Bhavesh, for conducting this session.